Information Communication Technology, Madam Speaker. The government has been determined from the beginning to use technology to integrate Fiji more effectively with the rest of the world, to connect Fijians and to deliver information to every corner of every island in our beloved country. Government will also work to improve service delivery in the sector so that ICT can play a larger role in stimulating the Fijian economy. To provide added stimulus, we will eliminate import duties on components and materials that are essential to ICT development. These include modems. Duties have been reduced from 5% to 0%. Telecommunication batteries, duties have been reduced from 32% to 5%. And fiber optic cables, where duty has been reduced from 5% to 0%. The use of fiber optic cables, Madam Speaker, will boost internet access speed and deliver e-services more efficiently to more Fijians throughout Fiji. Madam Speaker, the capital expenditure for all ICT programs is $13 million, which includes, Madam Speaker, $9.2 million that is dedicated to connecting Vanuatu to the Southern Cross cable through a link from Samoa to Vatuanga, which will pass between Vanuatu and Taveuni. Madam Speaker, this is a project that holds enormous potential to create jobs, promote investment, and improve government services in Vanuatu. Residents will be more connected with the rest of Fiji and the world, which is good for business, good for education, and good for families. This is an investment in our country that will be paid back many times over and in a very short period of time. $400,000, Madam Speaker, has been allocated for the central VoIP platform, which will reduce communication costs within government. $1 million has been allocated for the government fiber network project, which will boost internet speed, access, and deliver services more efficiently to more people throughout Fiji. We have a bill before Parliament to establish a national switch, or the Fiji Interchange Network, to connect all online payment services with Fiji's financial institutions. The national switch will combat anti-competitive measures, reduce costs of financial delivery, reduce our dependency on cash, and give consumers better access to financial systems, and we have allocated $600,000, Madam Speaker, for this purpose. Madam Speaker, women, children, and the elderly. Madam Speaker, it should come to us as no surprise to anyone in this Parliament or to the nation that advancing the welfare of women and children is one of our government's highest priorities. The Honourable Prime Minister has spoken out forcefully and repeatedly about the need to end the shameful and destructive violence against women and children that exists in our country. And Madam Speaker, I'm sorry to say that it is not just the violence that causes shame. It is equally shameful that civilized, educated, and worldly Fijians, even good and honourable people, make excuses for it. When we excuse violence, we teach generations of Fijians to be violent and to see women and children as property to be used or abused. It is a plague, Madam Speaker, that gnaws and tears away at the very fabric of our society, and we must unite to stop it. Ending domestic violence, Madam Speaker, is one important part of our effort to protect and empower women and children, two of the most vulnerable groups in Fiji. The Ministry of Women, which oversees the mainstreaming of gender and is the primary advisory body on women and gender development issues, is allocated $3.4 million for this particular aspect. We will provide a 24-hour domestic violence helpline at a cost of $170,000 to provide both emergency and non-emergency counsel and assistance to victims of abuse. This helpline will bring domestic violence out of the shadows and let women and girls and boys know that they are not alone. It is a free call, Madam Speaker, and even a 10-year-old girl can pick up the phone and get the help and protection she needs. We'll also continue to fund the Women's Action Plan at $1 million, the Fiji Women's Federation at $200,000, the Fiji National Women's Expo at $500,000, and the Food Voucher Program, which attempts to ensure that pregnant women in rural areas receive adequate nutrition and is allocated $500,000. The Care and Protection Allowance Program, Madam Speaker, which assists children from low-income families and single-parent families, prisoner dependents, children living with disabilities, and children under residential care, will also be funded at a substantial level, receiving $3.5 million, including $300,000 for the 250 new recipients. We have raised pensions for widows, children, and other dependents of deceased members of the RFMF. Widows' pensions will increase from 33% to 40% of a full pension, and adult dependents' pensions would increase from 12.5% to 40%. Madam Speaker, the government has made an allocation of $14 million, an increase of $1 million for the social pension scheme for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. and the age of those who can apply for this scheme has been lowered, Madam Speaker, as undertaken by government from 68 years now to 66 years. It started off at 70 and will now be 66 years, Madam Speaker. In total, Madam Speaker, government's social protection program has been allocated $40.7 million, which is an increase of $2.5 million. In addition to our social protection programs, Madam Speaker, government has allocated $500,000 to assist lease payments for tenants who are in abject poverty or disabled and who cannot make their lease payments, whether it is to TLTB or whether it is to the Lands Department. Madam Speaker, regulations governing the labelling of baby formula has had an unintended negative consequences for women and children. Ironically, they were intended to ensure the quality of baby formula in Fiji, but the effect has been to keep some of the best baby formula in the world out of Fiji because the manufacturers were unwilling to pay for special labelling for such a small market. We will change the labelling requirements, Madam Speaker, which comes into effect from tomorrow, and also require, however, at the same time, the current Codex standards, which will allow Fijian mothers who cannot lactate, or babies who are lactose intolerant, or have other problems, or women who choose at some point to use formula. The Codex standards, Madam Speaker, are based on the same formula that applies to the milk that mothers use in New Zealand, Australia, or the United States. Madam Speaker, persons with disabilities. People living with disabilities, Madam Speaker, everywhere face serious obstacles in their everyday lives. But we are a developing country, and a life for people with disabilities in Fiji is probably harder than life for people with disabilities in Canada, Australia, or Finland. But we don't want any of our fellow Fijians to be or accept second-class status. If we seek the best for ourselves, we cannot leave any of our citizens behind because of a disability. It is up to government, representing the entire Fijian community, to put forward policies that give people with disabilities the foundation to have ambitious plans, achieve their potential, and live fulfilling lives. There is no reason, Madam Speaker, why people living with disabilities cannot make real contributions to the economy and society in general, if only we can level the playing field for them. Madam Speaker, perhaps the best single thing government can do to raise the condition of the disabled and bring them into the mainstream, Madam Speaker, is to encourage companies, businesses to hire them as employees, to mainstream them. Therefore, Madam Speaker, we are giving a 300% tax deduction on wages paid to disabled employees for the first 3 years of employment through revisions of the employment taxation system. Madam Speaker, just to digress in our consultations, we met with a gentleman in Lautoka who works for a printery shop. He is completely deaf. He cannot hear, completely able-bodied otherwise. He works in a printery shop. They don't pay him the same rate of salary that other people get paid who can hear. When he's sick, they don't give him sick leave. They tell him you can leave. We obviously, Madam Speaker, need to ensure that these people are protected. We obviously want to ensure, Madam Speaker, that these people who are employable are employed, and we encourage them to be employed by potential employers, and sometimes we need to give the carrot. And the carrot is the 300% tax deduction, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this will encourage employers to hire people with disabilities who are most capable and able to carry out responsibilities and even do better than many of us supposed able-bodied Fijians. A disabled person must be given a chance to have meaningful work. This incentive will encourage employers and also compensate them for accommodations they might need to make for disabled employees. Madam Speaker, government has launched a number of initiatives for the disabled, including the subsidized bus fare concession, which fully waives bus fares for persons living with disabilities. Currently, 2,490 individuals benefit from this. Grants are also provided, Madam Speaker, to voluntary organizations with the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation and the Fiji National Council for Disabled Persons. These organizations support the blind and hearing impaired, persons with learning disabilities, and the physically disabled. The Rights of Persons with Disability Bill is currently before Parliament, which captures the most significant features of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which Fiji has signed but has yet to ratify. We believe we are, in fact, Madam Speaker, ahead of this bill in a very practical sense. Madam Speaker, we will allocate $1.6 million to fund NGOs that support the disabled, such as the Spinal Injuries Association, Fiji Association for Deaf, United Blind Persons, and the Fiji Disabled People's Federation, and others. This, Madam Speaker, is a jump of 800%. And it comes with requirements, of course, for transparency, accountability, and strong financial management. We are also working very closely, Madam Speaker, with the Fiji Sugar Corporation to provide a facility for disabled persons in the Western Division in its compound in Lautoka. Madam Speaker, the disabled persons in the Western Division do not have a central place to go to, as we have in Brown Street in Suva. This facility, Madam Speaker, will cater for persons with disabilities in the Western Division. It will be ready by September of this year. Government will also, Madam Speaker, provide for a new bus for those disabled persons in the Western Division. At the moment, they do not have any form of transportation. When they want to have the meetings, they cannot get together. When they want to have trainings, they cannot get together. If they want to get a wheelchair, they have to come specifically each time to get a wheelchair from Suva. This will also provide them with some storage facilities. Madam Speaker has highlighted the facility in Lautoka will allow disabled persons in the Western Division to conduct trainings, meetings, and store equipment. Government will also pay for the vocational teachers in Suva who are currently being paid as volunteers. It's a wonderful vocational training course. And only 3 of the teachers were currently paid by the Ministry of Education. Government will pick up the tab for the other 6 or 8 teachers who are qualified to take these courses. Madam Speaker, the land transport regulations will also be amended, Madam Speaker, and the Minister for Responsible Transport will be doing that very soon, where we'll make an amendment to the regulation that the first 2 rows of seats must always be reserved for disabled persons. Of course, if there's no disabled person in the bus, an able-bodied person can sit there. But should they come on board, then we have to move away and give them that right to sit there. And this, of course, Madam Speaker, will be put in place in regulations from tomorrow. Madam Speaker, of course, as we've said, that we now, this broadcast today, we have a sign language interpreter, and we are also, Madam Speaker, working behind the scenes with the International Telecommunications Union and other partners to ensure that sign language or other forms of messaging becomes available in our television in the future. Of course, Madam Speaker, this comes on the back of the fact that we are now carrying out digital television works, and which will make it a lot easier to do so. We are also working with FRA, Madam Speaker, and municipal councils throughout the country to retrofit public toilet facilities to accommodate the disabled, and also retrofit many of the footpaths that we see that does not have a ramp. Many of the footpaths were built years ago and they do not have wheelchair access. Madam Speaker, revenue collection capacity and tax incentives. Madam Speaker, all of this expenditure cannot be possible without tax revenue and our ability to obtain funds we need to build this country, to stay on that path to a future that is prosperous, free, sustainable and fulfilling depends on both government and the people. Government must do a better job of collecting taxes that requires a combination of improved services to the taxpayer, a growing economy that broadens the tax base, and better enforcement of tax laws. It does not require us, Madam Speaker, to increase personal or corporate taxes. We need greater compliance and we need a broader-based tax economy. Government, Madam Speaker, has reformed the tax code, regulatory codes, and a number of policies to encourage and reward investment, and that has produced more revenue with lower taxes. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, though, not every Fijian pays his or her taxes gladly, and some would avoid paying taxes altogether while reaping the rewards of our system and enjoying the protections and programs funded by public funds by the taxpayers who actually do pay the taxes. Indeed, many interested parties, even publicly, always blame taxes for the increased cost of business, when at close examination of overall taxes, including company and personal taxes, we will find it's all much lower compared to other countries. Yet, these very people who complain are the ones who do not want to reduce the exorbitant margins or give up the exclusivity because they don't understand finance at all and the need to provide for all Fijians. Madam Speaker, revenue collection increased notably after we reviewed and began reforming our collection mechanisms in 2013. In 2015, Madam Speaker, the total projected revenue collection stood at $2.8 billion, around 30.7% of GDP. Last year, we changed the tax code to lower VAT and import duties on a number of items. And we warned retailers, Madam Speaker, that we would fine and, if necessary, prosecute anyone who did not pass the lower VAT onto the customers. As of today, FERCA has completed 32 cases and collected fines amounting to $700,000, mostly from supermarkets, a cinema company, bookstores, restaurants and car dealers who did not pass on the VAT reduction to their clients, to their customers. And they've all been fined, they've all paid up. In the next fiscal year, Madam Speaker, we will focus our reform efforts on putting in place simple, streamlined administrative processes and doing a better job of assisting taxpayers, processing applications for investment projects, and recovering outstanding taxes. Machines linked to cash registers, as highlighted last year, to monitor retail sales will be deployed this year and will combat internal fraud. We will implement data warehousing and accommodate taxpayer and government needs and improve access to services through e-processing. Madam Speaker, as we become more efficient in collecting revenue, we also must become better to be able to use tax policy to improve people's lives, encourage healthy lifestyles, ensure greater equality, and create more opportunity. We have mentioned the tax break for employers who hire persons with disabilities, but we have proposed a number of other measures that will make a real difference in people's lives. Government is also proposing a range of new revenue policies that lower some duties and excise taxes in prioritized areas of development, widen the tax base to fund government initiatives, and provide incentives to limit carbon emissions, improve public health, and employ disadvantaged groups. The World Customs Organization has recommended changes in the harmonized system after its most recent periodic review, and I will be bringing a bill to Parliament later this year to make those changes, and they need to be implemented by 1 January of 2017, Madam Speaker. In order to allow Fijians to have cheaper, cleaner running vehicles and to reduce our carbon footprint to meet Fiji's global commitment, all new hybrid vehicles will continue to attract zero duty for the next 2 years. However, with the effect from 1 January 2017, second-hand hybrid vehicles will attract a modest duty increase based on engine size. 6 months' time, therefore, Madam Speaker, is given from now until the end of the year for all those Fijians who want to take advantage of this reduction if they are interested in purchasing second-hand hybrid vehicles. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, as we know, the markup on vehicles has been very high. We have discovered that vehicles that land in Fiji at a cost of about $8,000 are actually sold in the market to ordinary Fijians at about $22,000. The markup is about $15,000, $20,000 even on a vehicle, or $10,000 on a vehicle. So whilst we are foregoing duty in the hope that the price for the consumer will be reduced, the business people, the importers are actually jacking up their margins. So in order to address this issue, Madam Speaker, FIRCA, from August of this year, will start publicizing through the media the price at which vehicles are landed in Fiji and the price at which they are sold for all the companies. So then the consumers will be able to know which company is charging what markup, and they can make those choices. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, it will take our FIRCA's resources, but it will also mean that we'll hopefully get better pricing and better margins being pushed for the benefit of the consumers in Fiji. Madam Speaker, but we also need, if we want to go the electric car way, we need to build an infrastructure to support those electric vehicles. So equipment for charging stations will also enter duty-free. Charging station businesses will enjoy a 7-year tax holiday and be able to carry forward 8 years of losses. They are also eligible for rebates of 5% of investment of $3 million or more and 7% on $10 million or more, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, alcohol and tobacco are major factors in the prevalence of non-communicable disease in Fiji, as is overconsumption of sugar-sweetened drinks, which can be linked directly to obesity and diabetes. In order to reduce consumption of these products and help improve the health of Fijians, government is increasing the fiscal and import excise tax on alcohol and tobacco products by 15%. And we believe that we can stick to this rate for the next 3 years. We have received many requests from the private sector and NGOs to help Fijians control the intake of sugary beverages. So the excise tax is being increased by 20 cents per litre. Madam Speaker, because of the rationalization of our taxation regime, and now because we have a better regulatory framework for the fair reporting of credit, the credit card levy will now be eliminated to simplify the taxation system. Madam Speaker, regarding capacity building and salaries, Madam Speaker, the nation we are becoming requires us to step up to our game, to invest in the people we need to deliver services, to build infrastructure, and to generally improve the quality of life in Fiji. Our civil service is improving rapidly as we set high standards and provide our civil service with the guidance, structure, and training they need to do their jobs well. While we carry out our civil service reform, we are also putting into place regulations and procedures that will improve the checks and balances in management and compliance with ministry standards for disbursements. Madam Speaker, Government will provide $90,000 in grants to professional and trade bodies such as architectural organizations, engineers, builders, and even hairdresser organizations to help them develop capacity, professionalism, and high professional standards. We expect these organizations, Madam Speaker, at the same time to be accountable, keep proper records, hold regular elections and meetings, and will seek to engage with more associations in the coming years that meet these standards. Madam Speaker, we are also introducing major improvements in the terms and conditions of government-employed doctors. In order to improve efficiency, the budget allocation and the responsibility for the administration of these doctors will now be transferred to the Ministry of Civil Service, pending the completion of the civil service reform in the health ministry. There are a number of works on foot that we need to address, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at the same time, we are giving a healthy pay rise increase to government-employed doctors in order to attract and retain talented doctors and reward them fairly for their skills and services. The increased salary ranges from 56% to 81%, depending on the specialized area of practice, which should give everyone an idea of just how underpaid they were. We will also pay for the postgraduate studies, Madam Speaker, at FNU in order to help them stay abreast of advances in medicine and ensure that the public gets the most advanced care possible in Fiji. The current on-call rates, Madam Speaker, for doctors, which has been there for a while, which has now been completely changed with this announcement, used to be about $12 for the whole night. Locums, Madam Speaker, weren't allowed when locums were actually available. So, Madam Speaker, an allocation of $40 million has been set aside to meet doctors' salaries. We also believe there is an opportunity for a lot more collaboration and synergy between what we call public doctors and private doctors. Indeed, Madam Speaker, we hope to, in the next few months, following further consultations, merge the two professional medical associations. One is the Fiji College of General Practitioners, which is only the private sector doctors, and the Fiji Medical Association, which is only the public health doctors. There's no reason as to why they should not be merged. There's no reason as to why private sector doctors cannot, for example, come and serve for 3 or 4 hours at a peak period in the public hospital. All of this is possible, Madam Speaker, and this is part and parcel of the review process that is taking place. Madam Speaker, also we have set aside $250,000 to set up an open and transparent complaint system and create a mechanism for any Fijian to seek resolution of complaints about the treatment by any medical or health institution. Madam Speaker, this will give you a direct hotline to them. They're able to pick up phones, whether the nurse may be talking to them in a rude manner, or whether it's a complaint about a particular service of a doctor, or whether it's anything to do with the health service. We then, Madam Speaker, expect to extend this complaint protocol system that we put in place to other, what we call high public impact areas of government services. Madam Speaker, we will continue to help Itauke landowners become land developers if they choose, by giving them wherewithal to install basic infrastructure such as water, sewage, and electricity on the land that they plan to lease, and even become partners in the development, whether residential, commercial, or light industrial, Madam Speaker. This allows landowners to add value to their property, negotiate for better lease terms, and become partners in the development of their land rather than passive leaseholders, rather than simply owning assets but without cash. The government, Madam Speaker, has further and continues to allocate $10 million for this purpose. 4 projects have already been approved, Madam Speaker, and works have already started in Warrambitia, Saweni, Vunda, and Yandua in Nanunga. And we hope to identify more in the next few weeks, Madam Speaker. There's a few more in the Central Division. Madam Speaker, in the wake of T.C. Winston, a number of people who experienced difficulties in complying with the requirements of the Land Sales Act sought extension for compliance because of the inability to build because of Cyclone Winston. In order to address these concerns, we will amend the law by establishing a review committee to assess non-resident owners' requests for extensions in relation to the requirement to build on the land within the 2 years. $25,000, Madam Speaker, has also been allocated for monitoring compliance with the Act and to ensure that the land is being utilized. The Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission is funded at $1.5 million, an increase of $300,000. This will allow the Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission to receive and investigate more complaints from the general public. This was seen in the budget consultation that we held, in particular with persons with disabilities. The Accountability and Transparency Commission will receive an allocation of $635,000, Madam Speaker, and we look forward to the Standing Committee reporting the Information Bill and the Code of Conduct Bill. The Information Bill, Madam Speaker, 2016, gives effect to the right of access of official information, which is a clear indication of the government's commitment to open governance and the core principles of democracy, human rights, and, of course, transparency. The Code of Conduct Bill, Madam Speaker, provides for codes which must be complied with by those in public office to ensure the proper conduct of those in public service and the protection of public interest. Madam Speaker, FICAC has proven itself to be dedicated, capable, and scrupulously independent in pursuing cases of corruption. For instance, it has instituted proceedings in court only recently against an Australian company called Prime Fiji Limited that was contracted by FRA to install street lighting. Its success not only roots out corruption that has occurred, they uphold the principles that dishonesty will not be tolerated by us. And that gives people faith to trust our legal system, work hard and invest. It is funded at $8.5 million, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a modern country needs an equally modern police force, one that protects and serves the community. We must equip our police and give them the technology, the equipment and training they need to keep us safe. The Fiji Police Force will receive an allocation of $131.7 million, an increase of $5.5 million. Madam Speaker, we have also increased the salaries for special constables by 20%. Their pay was set based on unrealistic assumptions about how much they would work and what they would be required to do. Over the years, these special constables who were supposed to work on a part-time basis in basic policing have acted as full-time constables, and they should be paid accordingly. So special constable sergeants pay will rise from $5.70 an hour to $6.85 an hour. Corporals pay from $4.95 to $5.90 an hour, and constables from $4.05 to $4.86 an hour. Madam Speaker, we are also increasing pay for civilian police force employees and for the senior levels of the police to levels that commensurate with their duties and responsibilities. Madam Speaker, in one of the concluding areas now, I would like to say that we all know that all of us in this room, including all Fijians that are watching us tonight, love sports. We will celebrate a national holiday dedicated to sports in less than 2 days' time. And Fiji is also an international destination. People love to come here, and we are fast becoming an international sports destination. We will once again host the Fiji International Golf Tournament in Natandola, and we just finished hosting the Pacific Island and Oceania tournaments in weightlifting and swimming. In a few days, we will host the Crusaders versus the Chiefs. Indeed, hosting such events meets not only Madam Speaker, hosting such events or meets not only provides exposure to our athletes and our youths, but it also has a multiplier effect on our economy. As an example, the president of the International Weightlifting Federation, who was here recently for the Oceania weightlifting competition, was so impressed with our country, our organization, our facilities, that he's now talking to our equivalent organization in Fiji, the Weightlifting Association, about hosting the World Weightlifting Championship in 2018. Madam Speaker, we have budgeted $1.9 million to host various other international and regional meets in the 2016-2017 budget. Madam Speaker, we will watch our men's sevens team and our Fijiana team compete for gold, along with our athletes in football, archery, judo, shooting, table tennis and weightlifting at the Olympics in Rio. Our athletes don't need an extra incentive to go for gold, but we think they might appreciate a reward. So we have set aside funds for a cash reward of up to $30,000 to any Olympian who brings home a medal, just to show how the country appreciates their dedication, Madam Speaker. A total of $500,000 has been set aside for this incentive. Madam Speaker, I could not end this presentation on a more positive note than to wish our Olympians great success in Rio de Janeiro. For their fellow Fijians will be following every move for the glory of their country and for themselves. It takes great dedication, Madam Speaker, and sacrifice to be an Olympian, and a medal or not, that is worthy of our respect and admiration. Madam Speaker, we dedicate ourselves to building a Fiji that gives everyone the right to work to be an Olympian, or whatever his or her ambition is. I say ambition and not dream because, Madam Speaker, Fijians are and must be doers, not simply dreamers. The government will do all it can to create and maintain a Fiji where anyone of good faith and character who perseveres can achieve his or her goals. Madam Speaker, as I had mentioned earlier, I don't want to take a lot of time. We have the budget details publicly available on our website. We have gone out specifically and printed, as I said earlier on, specific expenditure requirements under the 4 sectors. It's available to members of the public outside the room. When you step out, it's available on web page and also on Facebook, Madam Speaker. And of course, the entire budget estimates, Madam Speaker, will also be available online as it was available last year. And we will also be placing inserts, Madam Speaker, of these expenditure costs to go out to members of the public in the Fiji Sun. Madam Speaker, I also note tonight there is an important State of Origins rugby match today, so I don't want to eat into people's primetime television. Accordingly, Madam Speaker, to summarize, Madam Speaker, this budget is focused on broadening our economic base. And government at the same time, Madam Speaker, is committed to creating more opportunities in the education and labour sectors, in particular for our youth, and not forgetting our elderly and of course our disabled. And Madam Speaker, as a result of that, Madam Speaker, if you look at our budget spend, we have stuck to the formula that has worked well, and that is 40% of the amount of money that we are spending in this budget, Madam Speaker, goes towards capital investment, and 60% goes to operational costs. If you were to go back to 2005, Madam Speaker, the mix was 85 to 15. Now there's 15 for capital expenditure, 85 for operational. And what we are doing, Madam Speaker, of course, is building for the future. We're building for our youth, we're building for our young people, we're building for our people who are disabled, and our women and children, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, it is with great pleasure that I hereby commend the 2016-2017 budget, Madam Speaker, to this Parliament with the approval of Cabinet. Vinaka. Thank you.